So after sitting around here for a little bit and thinking, I got some stuff done and realized that there was a lot I wanted to talk about on this topic. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this a two-parter. And for those of you who haven't seen the first one, go ahead and check back for part one. This is Jester's Couch. I'm the Jester. We talk about stupidity, and the topic we're doing is drug laws, particularly prohibition of drugs. I don't have a problem with restrictive laws, like say you have to be 21 to purchase alcohol or 18 to purchase cigarettes. You can't purchase alcohol after a certain time of night. Although I think that is kind of stupid. I get the point. You know, I can see the practicality of something like that. It's dumb, but it does have practical application. There is zero practical application to trying to use a police force to stop a substance completely. It's dumb. One of the counter arguments I was going to bring up in the first video is people say, well, you legalize drugs other than marijuana, you're going to have chaos in the streets. And I completely disagree. And I challenge anyone out there, have you ever done a drug just because it was legal? And have you ever not done a drug just because it was illegal? With the exception of marijuana, because I know a lot of people say the only reason I don't is because it's illegal or because my job drug tests me or something like that. But I mean, I've met meth heads. As I've said in another video, I've met somebody from most walks of life in a lot of different countries. I've been around the world a lot, and I've never once met a single human being that used heroin, meth, painkillers, or was an alcoholic before that kill the most people. Or even some of the cokeheads I've met. The one thing I've actually never run across and I'll think about is a crackhead. I've never met anybody who actually regularly used crack cocaine. But anyway, I've never met anyone who used any drug I've mentioned ever because of the legal status. It had nothing to do with that. They didn't even register in their fucking heads. Unless there's a cop nearby. This is a lot like the whole gun law idea. You know, if we outlaw guns, only outlaws will have guns. If you outlaw drugs, only outlaws have drugs by definition. If it's legal, then people who have drugs aren't outlaws by definition. You know, the violence behind drug wars comes from it being illegal. Because if I can legally sell something, like how many people get killed over laptop computers being sold, or over cigarettes, or ham and cheese sandwiches, or any other random item you can think of that people want, that people are gonna buy, that is legal. And even if you get into something that's highly regulated, right, like firearms or alcohol, it's still legal. Still legal. And that prevents problems. As soon as you make it illegal, I touched on this in the last video, you get prohibition. And prohibition almost always results in a black market that is, by necessity, stronger than the prohibitive group. I don't know if that's a fucking word. If it's not, let me know. But prohibitive group. The prohibitive group generally doesn't have the finances that the black market does. Because you see, when you take away something, when something needs a law in you know, to make it stop, people want to fucking do it. Look back on some of these laws that you know, the behavioral laws, legislative behavior. None of them are like basic shit that we all do anyway. It's all stuff telling us not to do basic shit that we all do anyway. Like, don't have sex, don't lust for someone else. I mean, it doesn't really matter where these laws come from. The ones that legislate behavior are almost always exclusionary laws. Don't do X. And X is almost always something very normal and natural. It's weird. I don't know. It's like drugs in this country have this stigma that they're evil for some reason, that they cannot serve a good purpose. And you know, when it comes to things like heroin and meth, I might be inclined to agree that they don't serve much of a good purpose. But I submit that it is not my place to tell you what a good purpose is. And if you find that killing yourself with heroin is what you really want to do, provided we can demonstrate you are not insane, I've said this before on the couch, you should be able to do that wholeheartedly. Again, one might argue that if you are willing to take your life, that might be insanity by definition. But again, that's an argument I'm willing to have. because I would rather argue about that person's rights than simply appeal to the authority. Because whose authority is it? And by what characteristic are they different than the person in question? The lawmaker, I mean. The person who wrote this authoritarian dictate. How are they different than the person who is mandated to follow it? And if the answer is none, then they have no right to make such mandate. You know, murderers can't write anti-murder laws, is the idea of what I'm saying here. Which is kind of funny, though, because alcohol is legal. It kills people all the time, constantly, in fact. Cigarettes are legal. That's totally fine. Most painkillers are legal. And they're really not that hard to get. But, you want to smoke some pot or something on that line, you need to go to jail. You're a criminal. I don't get it. What do you guys think? You think I'm way off base here? You think I'm right? I mean, all it takes is 5 minutes to look up some of these statistics of financial responsibility and the amount of money that drugs make states. One last thing before I get out, because I'm way over time again, is I feel like a good middle ground for a lot of people is just to legalize marijuana federally. Because pretty much every other drug, you can make a case. I mean, it's a bad case because at the end of the day, my body autonomy should outrate your authority. But you can make a case. Even alcohol, you can make a case. You can't for marijuana. And like some 80% of the funds allocated for the drug war are used for marijuana search, seizure, and arrests, mostly for general possession. And about 30 to 40% of the business that is done overseas and brought into the United States, product that is marijuana. So legalizing marijuana will stop most of your drug trafficking that's international, because that's their main cash crop. That stops, they no longer have the funds to keep moving it. And sure, there might be enough people doing coke and meth and all these other things, but a lot of that's made here. Cocaine is difficult to do. It comes across, but there's not nearly as many people doing that now as there used to be, say in the 80s. Drug violence is a bad thing, and the only way to stop it is to legalize drugs. Like, comment, subscribe. This has been the Jester's Couch. I got shit to do. This topic's bugging me anyway. Stay happy, guys.